I was at Upper Perkiomen School District. We had a big problem, and it was a problem that many school districts, many organizations have. The issue was that we had a lot of decisions to make, and we had so many different stakeholders and voices and people that wanted to be a part of that decision making process. Now, as easy it would be to just say, hey, here's what we're going to do. These are the decisions that the administrators are going to make. We knew that wouldn't make a lot of sense in the long run because we needed to get buy-in. We needed people to believe in what we were doing. And most of all, we wanted to hear what the community, what the teachers, what the students, what the parents, what everybody thought about how we should make these decisions and how we should go about that process. Working with Dr. Sue King, who's the assistant superintendent, and I was the administrator in charge of a lot of the curriculum and technology. And she said, we should develop a set of learning principles, guiding beliefs, guiding principles that we can filter all these decisions that we have to make. Decisions about funding that we're going to use for technology, whether or not we're going to change our assessments, what type of curriculum we're going to write, are we going to use open education resources, how are we going to bring the community into this process. So many decisions that needed to be made on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis as a school district. She said, what if we develop these learning principles to help guide us when we're trying to make those decisions? This wasn't some new idea. Learning principles have been taught about many different educators, many different people over the year, and it's a little bit different than the whole mission and vision work. Mission and vision are kind of just big guiding statements, but learning principles are actually beliefs that you can put into action, beliefs that you're going to see in a lot of the decisions that you're going to make. And in reading the book by Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe, Schooling by Design, they say that developing these learning principles is one of the most important aspects and things we can do as a school when we're backwards planning to the outcomes we're looking to achieve. So long story short, we got together a group that we called our leadership council. This included administrators, teachers, parents, students, school board members, community members. It was a big group, and we got everybody together to try to come up with these learning principles. And while this sounds good in theory, you know that if you've been part of a mission and vision work or these big groups with all different types of people, it can be really challenging to try to get everybody to share their opinion, share their voice, have time to kind of put their ideas out there, and also have a forum for discussion that can actually work and actually lead to some type of meaningful work being done by such a large group. Well, we came up with learning principles, and I'm so proud of the group and the learning principles they came up with. You can see them up on the screen right now. These learning principles have such an impact on what it looks like to learn in Upper Perkiomen School District. I mean, look at some of these learning principles, like number 2, successful learning requires individuals who know how to reflect, self-assess, and use feedback to establish personal goals for learning. Or number 4, the school district is a community of learners where ability is seen as dynamic and the environment in all classrooms allows each student to grow, develop, and engage in meaningful learning. These are important principles that took a while to develop. And you may be asking your question that I was asking myself, which is, how do you go about doing this? How do you get such a big group of people from all different backgrounds, all different roles, all different places in the community of the school district to come up with principles that align the beliefs and can guide and direct the future of the learning that happens at your school district? Well, that's what I'm going to walk you through right now. It's a design sprint, and it's not new. It's based on a very popular sailboat design sprint, but we tweaked it and made it work for our work creating learning principles. And what you're going to see in the next part of this video is step by step, right? The 8 different steps that you need to go through in order to do a design sprint that gets everybody's voice involved, discussion, iteration, ideation, talking through and making and developing those learning principles based on the situations, challenges, and unique circumstances that your community is in. And it all starts with a little thing called the whiteboard. Let me break it down for you. So the first thing that you need to do is when the group is in the room, you need to just kind of tell everybody this is going to be a design sprint. If they've never been part of a design sprint before, you have to tell them there is short periods of time where they're going to be working individually, sometimes we're going to be working collaboratively, sometimes where they're going to be speaking, other times they're going to be talking, but it's very strategic and it's very fast paced. The goal is to get a lot done in a short amount of time and give a lot of people a say in the process. Here are the steps in order. Step number one, you're going to start with things that are going well, that are working well in your school district, your classroom, your community, whatever you're looking at. Step two, you're going to capture all of the problems and potential decisions that you have to make right now or you're going to be making in the future. Step three, you're going to be prioritizing those decisions and problems in a group. Step four, you're going to be framing those decisions and problems as actual principles and solutions. Step five, you're going to be ideating those solutions without a discussion. Step six, you're going to prioritize those solutions and principles and talk about it amongst yourselves at your table. Step seven, you're going to decide which of the principles to edit and use and execute on. And step eight, you're going to decide how to make those principles actual, where you would use them in terms of your work as a school district and school. Okay, so if you're still following with me, let's get started with step one. You're going to have everybody at their tables look up at the whiteboard, and on the whiteboard is going to be drawn a sailboat. The sailboat has to have the top sail that's blowing in the wind. It has to have a water line right in the middle. Then it has to have the base, the undercarry of the boat, so to speak, and an anchor kind of hanging down. That's the visual that needs to be on the board. Everybody at their tables will have sticky notes. And on those sticky notes, you're going to ask them to write down what has been working well. What are some wins, some things that we are proud of as a school community? Nothing too small or too big. We just want to put them out there and write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your sticky notes. You have everybody for just about 3-4 minutes, jot them down. And what you want them to do is go up to the board in tables and share out just really quickly what some of them are as they put the sticky notes up on the whiteboard. This should only take about 5 or 6 minutes for the whole crew to kind of just write down things that are working well, and you want to put them on the top part, the sails of the sailboat. To start with that, well, we want to make sure that this session is not all about complaining, that it's not all about problems, that we are saying very quickly right in the beginning that there are many things that are working, and a lot of these things that are working can then be put into principles so we can support the things and challenges that we're having. Step two has everybody do the same exact thing, just opposite. All right, so this time you're going to say, hey, what challenges are we having? What problems, what decisions do we need to make as a school community that either we need to make and are struggling with right now, or we need to make and are going to struggle in the future? Same thing, everybody's going to quietly, individually jot down on a different color sticky note what that challenge is, what that decision, what that problem is at their table. This time, everybody goes up and puts those sticky notes up on the board on the underneath part, right? What's weighing down the ship, right by the anchor on the underneath part of the sailboat there. And nobody says out loud anything at this point in time. We all get back to our tables, recalibrate, and get ready for step three. Step three is everybody's handed out 3 little dots, all right? So the little red dots, right? Little stickers. And what you're going to do with those red dots is you're going to go up to that main board and you're going to look at all of the different challenges presented, and you're going to put a red dot on the 3 that you believe are the most important, the most pressing, the biggest decisions or most important decisions that you're going to make as a learning community. And everybody does this, put them all up on the dot. And whoever's running the meeting, whoever's moderating this process, a lot of times when I work with school districts, it's me, maybe with the team leader running that process. You're going to then take all of those challenges that are listed up there and prioritize them by how many of them have those little stickers. We tend to use a red or bright yellow colored sticker that's going to pop out so we can easily kind of organize and prioritize those challenges. Step 4 is probably one of the most important steps, and this is where we take each of those priority kind of challenges that we have and we break them up amongst the tables. And the tables is going to sit there and they're going to reframe that challenge as an actual how might we statement. So, for example, if maybe one of the biggest decisions that people had to make was, or one of the biggest problems that we had to make was we don't have enough funding to pay our teachers to create curriculum or get professional development for our teachers. Right? That's a big issue, a big situation. Funding, time, any of those types of things. So you would take that back to your table and you would reframe it as a how might we, right? So you would say, how might we develop new ways to fund teachers for curriculum writing and other forms of compensation for training and professional development? So you're reframing it as a question that you can then answer with a solution. Or, one of the biggest problems where how are we going to, big problems would be the community is not involved in our curriculum writing process. And therefore, there's all these problems and arguments amongst the community that weren't a part of that process. How might we include the community early on in the curriculum development process? And so you have all the groups reframe these into how might we statements that really gets to a place where you can develop a solution and kind of ideate those solutions. Step 5 is where we take those how might we statements and we ideate, we come up with our own ideas, our own solutions without anybody else telling us. So we are just individually sitting there, pen, paper, whiteboard, computer, whatever you're going to write on, and you're coming up with solutions to the how might we statements that we just crafted. And so each individual is doing this without discussion. It is a quiet room, or at least quiet enough that everybody can work individually on these for about 5 or 6 minutes before we get into step 6. Step 6 is where we're going to share out these solutions and principles, these kind of guiding beliefs with everybody at our table. And so everybody's going to look at all the different solutions. We'll start prioritizing them as well. We'll have the little dots again, put the dots on it and see which ones really rise to the top of solutions that everybody's agreeing on, right? As soon as you prioritize those solutions, what happens is some start to combine and morph and take this idea and put it with this one, and that's okay. It's very natural. We don't have to say, this person said it just a little bit differently than this one, I'm going to rank it here. No, if both people had a similar solution, let's combine those and then prioritize them to make it one of the solutions that you're going to bring forward to the rest of the group. Now you're going to take those solutions, right, and bring them to the rest of the group. So you're going to get up to the board, you're going to share them there, you're going to talk out to the rest of the group, and the group's also going to share theirs, right? These don't have to be a long time, but you're sharing what your solutions are and which ones you had at the highest level of priority. Every group's going to be able to do this, and then you're going to have to really take the next step, which is developing principles based on those solutions. That's going to lead us into step 7. But before we get into step 7, this is typically where I take a break. If it's a full day workshop, I give people a good long break where they can kind of just take a minute to debrief, discuss, get something to eat, whatever they need to do to kind of just relax for a minute before we get to the next stop. This is also taking about 40 minutes of time, so it's an after-school meeting. It's a great place to stop the after-school meeting and come back the next time your group gets together, because step 7 itself is going to take a whole nother 30, 40 minutes, and then step 8 is going to take a whole nother 30, 40 minutes as well. So right now is a really good time to stop, and depending on the time and structure you have available, you can come back at a later date or come back after a short break. So step 7 is all about deciding what you're actually going to execute on, deciding what you're going to edit, revise, and which principles you are going to use. And so typically this takes about 30 to 40 minutes for the group to choose which of the things they really want to focus on as solutions and principles to guide their beliefs, and then edit, revise, and tweak those so that everybody in the group feels heard, everybody feels like they have compromised and come up with a solution, and everybody also feels like these beliefs can really have an impact on the general learning community. When you're doing this process, it's important for both the individual voice to be shared and also for you to hear what the group thinks, right? You want to have that back and forth, being able to share and also hear what the group thinks. And so typically what we do is we have people look at all of the solutions, a group choose which one or two they want to work on, bring it together, revise, edit, do that work for about 20 minutes, and then share out the group. Get feedback in a jigsaw fashion from the group, go back, tweak it again, upload it on a shared Google Doc where everybody has access to. At the end of 30, 40 minutes, now you have a Google Doc where everybody has access to those learning principles, and you can take that next step, which is going to be step 8. After step 7, you're again going to take another break, all right? Because that was, again, a 30, 40 minutes of deep work where you're developing stuff. You have all the principles up on a shared doc right now. It may not be perfect, but the whole point is, in a very short amount of time, a sprint, you have developed something with a large group, a large community that people believe in, and they can go out and share that with other people. The next step, which is step 8, is now making these principles actionable. So it's all good and well to have mission statements, vision statements, learning principles, but if you don't identify where it's going to have an impact, then you're really going to be missing out on what the actual point of this is. So for example, at UPSD, our principle number 5 was learners will engage and work in supportive environments and receive regular and specific feedback related to their progress in order to maximize learning and develop individual persistence. The students will be given opportunities to use that feedback to remain accountable while improving their own learning. So where is that actionable? Well, it's definitely actionable in our grading and assessment policies, right? The types of assessments that we give, mastery learner opportunities, our special education policies. It is definitely something that we have to talk about when we are choosing resources, when we're developing lesson plans. It's also going to have to be something that is applied to classroom, whether it's online, in-person, hybrid, learning environments and how we design those, right? So that we're supporting those strengths as well. You can make a long list, right? I just did that off the head of all the different ones that you could do, but you can make a long list of actionable connections to that learning principle. And so that is what step 8 is all about. Step 8 is about taking the learning principles that you have and then breaking down, where do these apply? Where does this principle apply in the decisions that we make as a school community? Whether it's tomorrow or 5 years in the future, where does this apply? Once you've done that, then you have something to share with your larger community, right? You can share this with all the teachers, the parents, the students. The school board can put this out. You can put this on your website. You can make sure that people understand at the start of any type of initiative document that these are your guiding beliefs, and be open to the fact that people are going to call you out when they see that a policy doesn't line up with one of the principles. That is a great starting point for dialogue. And when someone argues something, it's not them saying that you're wrong. It's them saying, hey, I thought these were our guiding beliefs and principles as a school community, but it doesn't look like that is really supported in the way we're doing X or Y or Z. Now, the final step of this whole process is that these aren't perfect, and you should revisit them at least once a year, right? Revisiting them, looking at them, saying, hey, is there anything we should tweak? Now that a pandemic has happened, is there anything that we should change or anything that we should do? And so this would be a really good time once a year to kind of just recalibrate and say, hey, is this aligned to what we believe and our principles right now? Maybe we had a change in leadership, maybe a change in community that might impact some of those things, and we should sit down and talk about that. We started off this video talking about the fact that schools have to make big decisions all the time. And if we are just pulling out from our heads, right, our new ideas or whoever the people are in charge of that at a time to come up with answers and solutions to those decisions, then we're missing out on the greater community having an impact. Learning principles and developing them with a group of stakeholders from all over your community is one of the best ways in a design sprint to do this quickly, efficiently, and something that can impact the learning in your school community for a long time.